Somebody in chat was asking if I've finished Fallout London. I've not finished it. I got it working finally on my gaming laptop while I took this kind of long weekend thing over this past weekend. But I've not gotten it working on the big gaming PC yet, because I think I need to just totally uninstall everything, because there's like a couple extra mods you have to install to get it running properly. It's really, really freaking good. Like, it's really good. It's a mod that's free. So of course there's things you can point to, or little bitty things here and there that are odd, or that you might expect to be a little more polished here or there, but it's really, really, really good. And the sentiment that I've seen echoed a lot from people who are not like active Bethesda defenders or anything is that Fallout London makes BGS look extra bad. There still is not even an official, through like X or anything, an official acknowledgement of Fallout London. We pulled it up, and like, look at this. You go to the official Bethesda Game Studios page. There's no acknowledgement of Fallout London. There's just nothing. Bear in mind, they were supposed to launch Fallout London back in like April, right at the height of the TV show's popularity. And then BGS decided to shadow drop an update for a next-gen update of Fallout 4 that broke all the mods. So they couldn't release Fallout London on it. And even now, Fallout London requires you to roll back your version of Fallout 4 or buy it through GOG with the pre-next gen update. Otherwise, it just breaks it. But it's just weird to not even acknowledge that it exists. This is like a major DLC expansion sized mod that is free and that your fans are loving. Why not just be like, thanks guys, have one of the studio artists just quickly sketch up a little thing of like the Vault Boy saluting Big Ben or something, or I don't know, just something to just be like, hey, we hear you guys are enjoying a new mod brought by our amazing community. Happy exploring, or something, just anything. But they don't. And it's freaking weird. It's weird. I know some people are like, no, you're reading too much into it. Maybe that's the case. But I think it's just odd, because all over social media everywhere are discussions about Fallout and London. They are tied together right now because of this mod. If you're talking about Fallout, you're talking about Fallout London. And there's just no acknowledgement whatsoever, which is weird. It's just weird to me. So there's this video that was put together by LegacyKillaHD that I think exemplifies the broader sentiment. Fallout London makes BGS or Bethesda look bad. And let's see what he has to say, the man, the myth, the legend.
Fallout London is one of the most ambitious mods I've ever played, and to quote, reread the line, an entire new location of the franchise with a fresh take on the game's universe that still feels very Fallout. It proves, at least to me, that an outside the US Fallout game can be successful, although Bethesda has indicated that'll likely never happen, at least from them. A riveting, engaging story that begins with you in a mysterious lab and then fighting for your life on the overgrown, destroyed streets of London, trying to uncover the experimentation that brought you to be the Wayfarer. There's fun side content, immersive music with a great main theme, tons of choice and consequence which heavily plays into your build, a darker atmosphere that gives a sense of horror when traveling at night or entering into a poorly lit tunnel, NPCs with personality, a surprisingly professional voice acting cast, unique handcrafted weapons, armor, enemies, factions, and locations, mission and level design that pushes you to figure out things on your own, an increased difficulty which makes encounters more strategic, tense, and engaging, and a massive, and I mean massive, open world with so much things to explore and do. It truly feels like a miracle that something like this even exists, but Fallout London is not perfect by any means.
Yeah, to be clear, it's got some hiccups. To address the elephant in the room, obviously, with the London setting, BGS has been very clear, Todd specifically. Fallout is a game or a franchise about Americana and about the weird eccentricities of American culture intertwined with a time period like the 1950s during, you know, a lot of the concerns over nuclear war. And so it's a very uniquely American thing. So they're going to keep it in America. Fallout London, I think, shows that the formula works in another place, in another country, but I'm not sure if it fits the broader vibe that like BGS is going for. But clearly, I think it could work if they wanted to make it work. They could do a Fallout game set in the UK or Germany or Australia or China or Japan or something, and I think it would be fine. If anything, I think it could be really interesting to see like a Fallout game set in Japan, just to explore it and see what it's like. There's the other element that I saw a journalist, the name escapes me, I'm sorry, but somebody brought up on X that part of the reason they suspect that they haven't experimented with other countries is because it feels weird culturally to be an American studio making a game about a destroyed country, specifically destroyed by nuclear weapons. That's why like a Fallout in Japan might be a little on the nose. So they're just not going to bother with it, you know? Or a Fallout game in Germany might be like, maybe it's not our place, you know? I agree pretty. I think that Fallout in Japan is just maybe not the best mix for those cultural reasons and historical reasons. So I think that there's a lot of layers to it. There's a lot of pieces to it that have to be considered. It's not as simple as just make a Fallout game and put it over here and we'll see how it goes. I think BGS specifically tries to be much more intentional with the selection, you know. I think that that's a big part of it. Having said, he's about to go into the some of the nuances of issues, because it's not a perfect DLC. Even, you know, from what I've played, there's a handful of things where I'm like, okay, that's a little weird. I would do that differently. But here's the thing. It's a free mod. So the bar is really, really low. And I think that that's the difference. When you pay $70 for a game, or when you get it, you know, as part of a AAA offering through Game Pass or whatever, you have certain expectations, and those expectations are probably going to be higher if you pay for access than if you are getting something for free, because that just seems to make sense, right? If you pay for something, you expect more than when you got it for free. And I think that even with that in mind, Fallout London is such a high effort endeavor that it just feels like a love letter to Fallout fans, while, you know, and specifically at a time where it feels like Bethesda Game Studios specifically is broadly shunning Fallout fans. We have a TV show from Amazon. You could say that that's thanks to BGS, and I guess sort of indirectly it is. But I think the reasons the Fallout show are really good is because I think it's in spite of BGS's involvement, not due to Fallout's involvement or BGS's involvement. Beyond that, the next Fallout game is expected to be probably close to a decade away, which will put it 19 to 20 years after the last one. And we're right in the middle of that time frame. And there's been no announcements, no statements or anything on what's coming next for Fallout. All we are getting are expansions and new microtransactions for Fallout 76. Like, that's it. And I think that that's why this is striking such a chord, is because Fallout gamers are feeling really frustrated with BGS, because they're like, you're not going to do anything for 20 years with the franchise other than a live service MMO that's still kind of crappy. Really? And that really is all that they're going to do. And it seems like there are no plans to do anything else. There's been speculation that maybe Xbox will encourage them to do like a spin-off Fallout game, but that's all speculation. It's not even rumor. Because again, remember, speculation is just people saying stuff. Rumor is above that. Reported rumors are above that. Reporting is above that. And then there's announcements. We're at the very bottom with speculation. People just saying it would be cool if blah, 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 blah. What are all the 500 employees doing there? Really makes you question it. I mean, I've spoken to developers, both current and past, from BGS over the last few years, and all of them have said that there are major structural issues. They are very frustrated. There's a lot of wasted time waiting for certain mid-level managers or producers to sign off on stuff before they move on. There's just a lot of inefficiency. I would expect that BGS is one of those studios that could probably be half the size and get more work done, just because there's so much time wasted all the time. But anyway, let's continue on here, see what he says.
There are a decent amount of quests that feel too fetch questy, some areas that feel confusing with what you're supposed to do, lots of crashing, FPS and loading issues. Technical issues are the main problem right now, some of which I feel Bethesda deserves a lot of blame for it. The consequences of updating a years old game, completely breaking its modding scene and then just not fixing it. We're going to dive more into that later.
Well, to be clear, Fallout London requires you to roll back your game to the previous version. So it's not like they're trying to get this working with the next gen update. They're encouraging you to get it through GOG, which is the old version of the game, and not even bother with rolling it back through Steam.
So you better understand the frustration that many modders are feeling right now, but as it stands, and when it works properly, Fallout London is a triumph. And I truly believe another example of Bethesda needing to do better. It's always felt like Todd Howard and company dislike the comparisons fans make between themselves and Obsidian. That feels like it will evolve now into comparisons to this mod. The work of the community that does feel in certain regards exceeding what Bethesda has ever done with this franchise. And this is coming from someone who just recorded a video looking fondly back at the foundation of Fallout 4. I was wrong with some of my overall criticisms with that game years ago, such as calling it Bethesda's biggest mistake. It's not. That aged poorly. The releases to follow have been far more divisive and controversial. There is a reason why there is skepticism now that this Bethesda team can deliver with the Elder Scrolls 6, a skepticism that also is felt with future BGS Fallouts. It should terrify Bethesda that the community crafted tons of high quality content and a massive explorable world for free, and meanwhile they're selling mediocre buggy quests for $7.
For real. It also, this whole thing with Fallout London really betrays, I think, just how stupid the concept of the Creation Club is. If ever there were a mod that deserved $5 from you, it would be Fallout London. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. I think if they wanted to charge $10 for it, I would happily pay it, but they don't. Instead, what you get through the Creation Club are $7 missions from Bethesda themselves, where the reward is a gun that can't reload. And no, I'm not making it up. If you didn't see the video or the critique talking about it, the reward for that quest that you pay $7 for is a gun you can fire 4 rounds of, and then once the mag or the clip is empty, you're just done. It can't reload. It's broken. They might have fixed it since then, but for the first week and a half, it was broken at the very least. And that's why people are frustrated. That's why people are very frustrated, because that's the level of effort you get from BGS. But then the community comes out with this for free. And it leaves fans wondering, wait, why is BGS even in charge? They clearly don't really give a crap. And I understand there's sort of a cult of personality with Todd, and we kind of lean into it. We make fun of it by having a Holy Todd candle. We have a cardboard cutout. I have Todd's coat from E3 where he announced all this stuff, because I think it's really funny to sort of mock the people who are so sycophantic towards him. Even now, Todd will only go on friendly territory for interviews and discussions. He'll only go on to platforms where he knows he's going to get tossed softball questions, where there's not going to be a follow-up. If there is a tough question, hey, some of these quests are broken and people are not happy with the pricing. It'll always be asked in a disconnected way. We looked at the Maddie interview where it was, some people are really upset about the pricing. Not, Todd, I got to ask you, man, the pricing for this quest is hilarious. Charging $7 for a quest that's broken. What were you guys thinking? How do you justify doing that to your fans who make your games possible, that pay for your living? How do you do that to them? There's no questions. There's no follow-up, nothing. He'll bounce around the question and then you just move on. And that's not an accident. It's because he's the head honcho in charge, and so he's going to go where the territory is friendliest. And you can't really blame him, because nobody likes going into a lion's den, but you also shouldn't be surprised when people start to lose a lot of faith and trust in your capabilities, which is what this is starting to turn into. So I think Fallout London really betrays a serious problem with BGS that they are apparently not really prepped to deal with, or they don't care to deal with it.
Of course, Fallout 76 still does exist, and it's been having some success as of recent, but it still is a far cry from what many gamers and fans want from a Fallout game, something that it appears only modders can be trusted to deliver on in the near future, because Fallout London is the spin-off that many have dreamed of for years. As Metro did this interview recently, the creator of Fallout London did talk to British Humor, and he also said they consider it Fallout 4.5. I actually consider it a little bit more than that. There's just so much here that they do, especially with the open world. I love the little sub-districts with their own politics and things going on within them, but there's also quality of life improvements to the franchise. Like, they revamped the dialogue system. It's similar to New Vegas and Fallout 3. They also revamped perks and skills as well. There's climbable ladders in a Bethesda game that almost, it feels like an achievement in of itself. Just some really cool things that they did here. Now, again, all indicate.
Dude, I forgot about the ladders problem. You think about it, they don't have climbable ladders.
Is that this is the only Fallout we're going to be getting for a long time. Todd Howard earlier this year said, I'm going to avoid putting dates on anything in regards to Fallout 5.
Yeah, technically in Starfield they do. You're right. In Starfield they do.
It's the only confirmed new Fallout game we have at the moment.
For the ships.
There's been some rumors and stuff going on about maybe some remasters, but those have just nothing ever came of it. So it could be that those projects never actually were real things. Now, we all.
Or they were speculated, or maybe they were being priced out and then they ended up deciding it wasn't going to work out. To be fair, like, I really don't think a Fallout 3 remaster would be worth them doing. And I know that sounds contradictory to what I was just saying, how they're seemingly doing nothing with the Fallout franchise. But the reason I don't think it's worth doing is because we know what Bethesda's upgrades are like. Just look at the next generation update for Fallout 4. It achieved nothing but introducing new broken stuff. It seems like it was basically just a ploy to put like the Creation Club paid mod stuff with a revamped shop and stuff in it. And it improved basically nothing. I mean, basically nothing was actually made better. So I fully expect that Fallout 3 remastered would just be like, not even a fresh coat of paint. It would be like, you know, when somebody has like a black car and then the paint gets chipped. And so they, instead of getting their actual like actual car paint to fix it, they go and they like grab a Sharpie and they just color in the dent or the scratch or the chip or whatever. And they're like, yeah, it's good enough. It's fine. Sure. It's like that. That's their level of upgrades. It's not even a fresh coat of paint. It's just a couple dots of Sharpie, as if that makes it better.
Also did see Todd Howard back in May saying that they would like to increase their output with the Elder Scrolls and Fallout because we don't want to wait that long either. The thing is, I've said this for years, they should have a studio dedicated just to Fallout and then a studio for the Elder Scrolls. I'm not sure why that hasn't been something that, you know, has been worked under Microsoft yet, but it feels like it's long overdue, especially after the success of the Fallout TV show. It feels like there would be more of an impetus to make sure that this is happening.
But I think this is precisely the problem. BGS seemingly can't manage one studio making one game. So the odds of them being able to manage two studios under a unified vision, that's pretty low. The odds of that working are pretty low. And at the same time, I think the assumption that they are not doing that is perhaps also flawed. They sort of do have dedicated teams to the franchises. Like, they kind of do. They have ZeniMax Online Entertainment making the Elder Scrolls Online. And then they have BGS Austin and Dallas working on Fallout 76. So they sort of are doing that. They're just putting out a product that nobody really wants. They're just putting out online variants of these games because those make a lot more money. And so if you're asking, like, why don't they have dedicated teams to make Fallout single player games and a single player Elder Scrolls game? I just personally think it's because there's too much, like, it's their babies. They're not going to give it away to anybody. I think BGS really does look at themselves like Rockstar. And so the idea of giving up like Grand Theft Auto to another studio so that there's another one, or Red Dead to another studio, that's such a ridiculous idea to them that it's the same as you know, BGS giving up Fallout or Elder Scrolls. I think they're just like, no. We can't do that. No way.
Now, Todd Howard also said this in May, that there's nothing to talk about in regards to Fallout 5, but he said that Bethesda is in plans for future games. And a lot of people looking at that remark as games. Could this mean a spinoff from Obsidian, Arcane, In Exile Entertainment, a different studio? That's kind of the question on everybody's mind. But the big thing about that is that even if there is a new studio that starts development on a new Fallout game, still going to be about 4 or 5 years. It's still going to be around 2030 until we get that, which I think is the expectation some have for an inevitable Fallout 5, which could take longer, assuming that the Elder Scrolls 6 is still years away. Now, Fallout London right now, as I've said, it is blowing up. We have this article, Shack News, Fallout London is a treat you shouldn't miss out on. I completely agree with that. And then, yes, many have been pointing out that this just makes a lot of people desperate for another New Vegas, another spin-off experience. But I would say that London kind of achieves that with its content and its overall quality, which again, it's just astounding that this even exists. Now, if you're curious about Bethesda's response to all of this, they have hired developers over the years, brought them into their own Bethesda team. I said before, I think that's really, really cool, but they have actually said absolutely nothing in regards to this mod's existence. The only thing that they've actually done is highlight some of their paid mods for their creation club. That's the only thing we're going to get out of them. The only time that they'll talk about the modding community is when they financially benefit from them through their creation club, which make of that as you will, I suppose. Now, the overall gaming community is over the moon that Fallout London even exists. I think it took a lot of people by surprise with this release. It was pretty darn sudden, but it's also just the fact that the quality is there. This is something that so many of us have been waiting for, and it's finally happened, and there's possibly more on the way. Never forget Bethesda. This is on the Fallout 4 London subreddit. So many people applauding this mod. Sir, another DLC-sized Fallout mod is at the Nexus, and again, there's more on the way. Hopefully those end up hitting the finish line like Fallout Miami, and hopefully they have the same quality. I'm not sure if it will be the case, but I certainly hope so. Another person saying, I'm having a blast playing this. Bethesda better be taking notes for damn sure. And another person saying, after 20 hours of play time, there's some bold statements that they need to make. Fallout London is one of the most important mods ever made in video game history. Scope, ambition, and story development would make this true, even if its execution hadn't been almost perfect. But what the team have delivered is a deep, challenging, loving rendition of an iconic location presented with all the authenticity of a genuine Bethesda release. And the big thing about this game is also 20 hours in, they're not jumping on the nostalgia. They're creating new stuff themselves. This is something that Bethesda themselves have struggled with. They rely heavily on stuff that they didn't create, the Enclave Brotherhood of Steel. But the Fallout London team created new factions, new gangs. They're all very interesting. They all have their own personalities, quests, and such. And I'm just blown away again that a modding team did this. Now, as it continues, Fallout London devs hand out math homework to players who are suffering from a bug that lowers their health points. Now, this is the big thing. Fallout London is a technical mess. It has a lot.
Yes, but that's kind of a at this point a trope of BGS adjacent projects. I just think again, the tale of Fallout London and the legacy, I think, is going to continue to just be that Bethesda is so hyper possessive of their franchises because it seems as though they feel nobody else can do their games justice. They can't give it to an Obsidian or someone because giving it to an Obsidian would mean, well, they're going to put out a worse product than we would, and that's going to devalue the franchise, and that it's just, we can't do that. But I think Fallout London actually shows the opposite. It's so refreshing to get something genuinely new and exciting and original that people are eating it up. People can't get enough. And so then you have to wonder, okay, well then what's Bethesda's excuse now? And again, it seems like it's a hyper possessive thing. They don't want to give the franchise to anybody else because it would mean that then maybe people would realize they aren't the best studio for Fallout. They're not the best studio for Starfield or for Elder Scrolls. And then what's the point of them existing? If all anybody wants is an Elder Scrolls game made by CDPR or a Fallout game made by Obsidian, what's the point of having a Bethesda Game Studios at all? And it's that insecurity that I think you can see all the way through, because it makes too much sense to just greenlight another project from another studio so that you don't have 20 years before or between major releases. So there's got to be some other explanation. And as of right now, we don't have a good one officially or even rumored. It just seems like Todd doesn't want that to happen because it would mean that Todd isn't in control anymore.
A lot of problems. I've not encountered too many bugs, but crashing and infinite loading screens is something I have run into. Restarting the game, that's kind of been a fix. There's also Buff Out 4, long loading fix, high FPS fix. Those are a couple mods and Nexus mods that you really just need to have downloaded with Fallout London. But the big thing is that a lot of this is connected to Bethesda, their own engine, their own game. This isn't necessarily a problem with Fallout London. It literally is just the technical mess that Fallout 4 is. Blame it on the Game Rio engine, which is the creation engine, and Creation Engine 2 and Starfield. Fallout London's project lead is not taking the surprise drop of Fallout 4's update well. That has, for lack of a better term, screwed us over. This was about a couple months ago.
Oh yeah, I was just recapping all of this. I think at this point, like, we're pretty much on the same page,
I suppose. But this opinion is one that a lot of people hold. This is a viral tweet on Twitter from a prominent Fallout community member, TK's Man, is saying, I think it's kind of shitty that Bethesda hasn't acknowledged Fallout London at all. They poached a large number of their American team, released an update right when it was going to launch, and now that everyone loves it, radio silence. Biggest Fallout mod of all time, by the way. And then Danny O'Dwyer, who did a documentary with Bethesda, he worked with them on that. He said, I think it's incredible that Bethesda allowed them to promote and release a project called Fallout London. I suspect the second they officially acknowledged it, 1,000 IP lawyers would be forced to descend on it. Also, are you criticizing them for hiring modders? Christ.
So this is the only potential explanation that I think has at least a semblance of validity. If you have a trademark in the US, you have what's called a corporate obligation, and it's an obligation to enforce the trademarks you hold. So the idea is I cannot trademark the term Bibbleboop and just sit on it forever in case one day somebody comes along and makes a product called Bibbleboop and then I sue them. I would have to, in order to hold that, I would have to hold that trademark. I would have to pursue legal action against anybody who uses that term ever. Otherwise, I would lose it because clearly it doesn't mean that much to me if I'm not enforcing it. It's why, like, somebody, I think last year on stream, came in and was asking, they asked, like, have you ever considered trademarking your name, like trademarking Luke Stevens, so your brand is all protected, you know? And then maybe you can go after, it was during the time where there were some people that were making like duplicate TikTok accounts and stuff, trying to copy our stuff and then sell them like scams and stuff, like message me on Telegram and I'll totally give you away a PS5 and stuff. And they're just scamming people. But they're using my name to do it. For one, you can't really trademark just your personal name. It doesn't really work that way. But beyond that, even if I did go by the term, like, I don't like some of these streamers where it's like you have a nickname like XQC. If XQC trademarks the term XQC, he has to pursue legal action anytime that name is infringed on. Anytime there's a YouTube video put up that uses like AI tools to make a funny montage of him saying stuff he didn't really say, he'd have to strike all of that. He'd have to pay lawyers to do all of that. It would be a nightmare, just a nightmare. And so he doesn't bother with it, at least not in the full-fledged, in the US, sense, trademark it. And I think with this stuff, they have a Fallout trademark. So if they were to acknowledge a Fallout London or DLC, then IP lawyers would be forced to descend on it. My understanding of US law and how trademarks work is that it's not once you acknowledge it, it's just its mere existence. So I don't know if that explanation really makes a lot of sense, frankly. Like, it's possible. Maybe then, they don't have plausible deniability. Maybe now if somebody comes to them and they're like, hey, why didn't you sue to or send out a cease and desist for the modding group using Fallout London as a name, maybe they could still say, well, we just hadn't heard of it, we're not familiar with that. I don't think that holds up, though. I mean, there's no way that holds up. So I don't think it's as simple as the acknowledgement then means they're compelled to do it. I think the mere presence of it and their knowledge of it is what compels the action. So again, I'm not really sure if I buy that. As for complaining about them hiring and poaching a bunch of their American team, I also think that's kind of a silly thing to complain about. It's like, yeah, they got hired because they're good at what they do. Isn't that the ultimate goal, But I do think it's telling that BGS has hired a lot of those people and not necessarily just thrown them into the creation club system, which is what they claim is the key for modders making a living. If they really think you're really, really talented and you're worth it, then they just give you a job.
Christ. And again, that's an opinion that Danny O'Dwyer and some do hold. And it's an argument that I do think is valid, but at the same time, I don't think that IP lores or everything's going to go crazy just if Bethesda put out a statement saying, look at this fantastic mod, our community is great, thank them for creating this. They could have done something like that. I don't think this would have turned into absolute chaos or madness.
Well, again, it's whether the lawyers would then be compelled. They would be left no choice to go and file all the paperwork to make it happen. My understanding is that it's the knowledge of it and the existence of it that compels that. And I don't think at this point Bethesda could argue that they don't know about Fallout London. Like, clearly they know about it. So at that point, acknowledging it, I don't think really changes things. You know, it just doesn't. And even then, if they're like, hey guys, so legally we have to have you change the name, they could have done that. Like, they could have done that. Do you think Todd has played it? I honestly, I don't think so. Todd strikes me as one of those guys that's so entrenched in the games that he's making that the games he plays are polar opposites. He's talked very openly about how he likes sports games. So like in the Mr. Medi Plays interview, he kept talking about how excited he was for that college football game to drop. So I think because he's in the trenches making these like open world adventure games, I think when he has free time, he's not playing open world adventure games. I think he's playing like, you know, Madden or college FC, whatever. Like, I don't think he's playing games like this for fun because he knows how the sausage is made. I think he just is disconnected because every time I've heard him talk about what games he's playing, it's either something that like Xbox marketing clearly told him, you need to say you're playing Hellblade Senua's Saga because it's a really good game and you're excited for the second game coming out May, whatever. Like, he'll say stuff like that, or he'll say that he's playing something totally out of left field.
In this specific post on the Fallout 4 London subreddit,
which, to be fair, or to be clear, I think is totally fine. He doesn't have to play every single big game that's similar to what he makes. That's fine. I don't want to act like that's some sort of major problem.
Is an example of the major issues some players have run into. There's a health bug, but there is a workaround here. There's also a damage bug if you acquire some certain items. All this stuff is currently being worked on. They're going to have fixes in the future. But yeah, there are some workarounds, fortunately, for some of these bugs. And yes, the intense difficulty you get in Fallout London, some of that is unintentional, but I do think the fixes that come are going to keep some of that there because I think they like the fact that this is harder, and a lot in the community do appreciate that. I think they wanted that from Fallout 4 in the base game. But again, underwhelming Fallout 4 next gen update finally getting fixed. This was what Bethesda said a couple of months ago, and it just never has happened. There is no fix for the major issues some players have run into, and this has led to some of the most popular Fallout 4 mods downgrading the game to skip the next gen update, which is what Fallout London has done. And the easiest way to downloading playing Fallout London is through the GOG store page. You end up having to buy the Game of the Year edition for Fallout 4, and then it's a pretty darn easy install after that. There are some other additions I mentioned earlier on, some other mods that you definitely need to have because of the technical issues, but other than that, it's simple that way. When you get to Steam, there's a lot more steps, and there's been a lot of controversy with how that setup is having to be. But again, this is because of the fact that Fallout 4 is a technical mess right now, and it is pretty much broken, and that is because of Bethesda and what they did with the next gen update, which, say what you want, but the new content that they included, it just wasn't worth it. It didn't really seem like they put a lot of effort into it, which again, you compare it to what this.
Well, and bear in mind that it also was delayed a ton. So it was supposed to come out like last year, I think. And they just were like, yeah, it's still coming. We're still working on it, whatever. And they just sat on it for ages and ages. It's really, really weird. Really, really weird. So I don't know. I think it seems like now he's just recapping the rest of the stuff. Again, like LegacyKillaHD, he's an OG in addition to being HD. And he's a great content creator. You should go check him out, subscribe and everything. Makes great stuff. And I think that he does a good job of summarizing how a lot of people just generally feel, which is that Bethesda, it's just bizarre. It's just bizarre at this point. We don't really know what they're doing. We don't know why their projects so consistently fall flat. There's just something odd with it. And maybe it's because they're about to drop Elder Scrolls 6 out of nowhere next year. And they're like, yeah, we can take on GTA 6. Here we go. And they've actually been making tons of progress on it. And that's why like Starfield was maybe a little bit more lackluster because they had the team split so thinly. Maybe. I don't think so. But maybe. I think the most likely answer, though, is just that Bethesda is a studio that has grown really big. They don't know how to manage it. I think They don't have a lot of high quality systems in place to work efficiently, which is something we've heard other people talk about. There was, of course, the game director from Phantom Liberty over at CDPR. We've pulled up that clip many, many times, but he talked about how they had to totally reorganize the company after Cyberpunk because they were like, clearly stuff was getting lost in translation. Clearly we were missing each other and we were, trying to communicate stuff that wasn't getting communicated. So clearly we need to make some changes. And they did that. They made huge, broad sweeping changes to how their company actually worked and how people interfaced with each other. And it did end up working. Phantom Liberty was great. But I think what caused that to go into motion was the catastrophic reception of Cyberpunk 2077. And I think when you have a game launch and you get that negative feedback and then you do some soul searching and you try to figure out what the problem is and deal with it, that's what leads to those big changes being made so that you can have better stuff happen again. With Bethesda, there is no big catastrophic thing that would push them into figuring it out and fixing the problems. Every time a game launched to mixed reception, they just focus on the people that like it and ignore all of the people that don't. Or they'll even gaslight you into thinking maybe it's not that bad. The astronauts had fun on the moon, so it's not actually boring. You're wrong if you think the game is boring. There's a company culture where they just don't acknowledge criticism. And I think you can see like over the last 10, 15 years, their games consistently reflect that and only more regularly get more and more bizarre. They start making choices where you're like, wait, you guys specialize in X. Why are you doing Y? And then like actively avoiding X. It's really strange. And I think it's because they just are a company filled with yes men. And again, I think they see themselves as basically the Rockstar Studios of open world adventure games, second to Rockstar themselves. And I just don't think that they're not in on the joke. It's why I've called Bethesda kind of lol cows, because everybody else is laughing at them and pointing out all the things they do badly and all the problems with them, but they're not in on the joke. They just aren't. And it's really, really bizarre that they cannot figure it out after all this time. And they seem to double down on all of it. So Follow London, really solid. There are some quirks here and there. If you guys would like me to do a bigger deep dive of it once I finish it, I'd be happy to. Because I think it deserves all the attention that it can get. But you should play it if you've got a PC and you have maybe, I think it's like $20 or so to get it going once you buy the GOG version and get all the mods going. But it's really, really solid. And if you need a Fallout fix, it's a great place to get it. So shout out to Legacy Killa for the solid video, and I guess we'll just keep working our way through the mod and see how it evolves. He took my thing.